Fantasy football week 1 quarterbacks. We're talking start sits, waiver wire acquisitions. I really hope you don't need a quarterback to start off the waiver wire this week, and daily fantasy value plays. So let's just jump right in. There are a lot of games to get to. So we're going to talk starts and sits. First game of the week, Thursday night football, Deshaun Watson, Patrick Mahomes. Is anybody out there who has one of these quarterbacks not going to start them? You start both of them, but I actually have them projected as the numbers 1 and 3 quarterbacks respectively. Deshaun Watson Deshaun Watson should get you some rushing yards and obviously some touchdowns. Patrick Mahomes, you'd be an idiot to sit Patrick Mahomes in any scenario. I don't care what the projections say, but this week the projections do line up. Second game of the week, we're into the early games on Sunday now. Chicago versus Detroit. Mitchell Trubisky, I actually have, believe it or not, as a borderline start. I hate that pick. I'm not going to start Mitch Trubisky in my league, but if you're looking for someone daily fantasy-wise, maybe you want to, you have no budget left, you want to spend all that money on running backs, wide receivers, tight ends, and you want to take a flyer on a quarterback, Trubisky, I think, will use his legs to start the season. I think he'll get some rushing yards, so he could get you decent value. Matthew Stafford, for me, actually is a borderline start or sit. I think Chicago's defense is going to be much improved this season. Everybody's down on them because they weren't the elite defense that we saw in 2018. Pagano took over the system. That takes a while for the players to acclimate to a new coach, new system, and vice versa. The Bears' defense, I think, will be better. If I had Stafford on my roster, I would be okay starting him. But there is, I think, some value that you can find elsewhere. So I think you can actually pick somebody up off of waivers and stream this week if you wanted to. Next game, Cleveland versus Baltimore. Baker Mayfield. I don't like Baker Mayfield's projection against the Baltimore Ravens. The Baltimore Ravens defense is tough. I do think Cleveland is much improved this year. I think Baker Mayfield is improved, but I don't think this is the week to stick your toe in the water there. Lamar Jackson, he's a start every week. He'll get you the rushing yards. He'll get you the touchdowns. No problem there. Next, Green Bay versus Minnesota. I think this is going to be a game where the defenses play well. Yes, I know Minnesota has a lot of turnover on that defense. I just think this matchup is typically lower scoring. Zimmer knows Green Bay. Pettin knows Minnesota. It's going to be a tough game. So I'm actually a sit on Aaron Rodgers and Kirk Cousins. I think he can do better elsewhere this week. Next game, we got Indianapolis versus the Jacksonville Jaguars. I actually like Phillip Rivers and Gardner Minshew this week. Now, you're probably not rostering them. You probably have better above them in your depth chart. But if you're looking for, maybe somebody to take a waiver wire claim on, I think you could pick both of these guys up right now with no problem. If you're looking for a daily fantasy budget guy, I think both of these will produce for you. Now, would I start one of these over somebody else? No, I have them kind of as lower tiered guys. If you're in a super flex league, I think you would absolutely play these guys. But, are you going to start them over somebody like a Drew Brees? Probably not this week. Next game, we have Las Vegas versus Carolina. Derek Carr and Teddy Bridgewater should put up points this week. Now, we haven't had any preseason, so maybe they're rusty. I don't know. But in terms of quarterback that are value guys that you can add, to your super flex lineup or add to your daily fantasy lineup at a very, very low cost, Teddy Bridgewater for me is actually projected this week, believe it or not, as the 5th quarterback. Do I think that's going to happen? I don't know. But what these projections show you is opportunity. I do think the Vegas defense is going to be better than last year. But Teddy Bridgewater running a spread offense, he has some receivers to throw to: Curtis Samuel, DJ Moore, Robbie Anderson. He's still got Christian McCaffrey out of the backfield to throw to. Bridgewater has a lot of opportunity, and if you're looking for somebody, if you're weak at quarterback, and you're looking for somebody to take a chance on before week 1 of the season, I think Teddy Bridgewater is my guy. You might want to take a look. This offense could look a lot like we saw in Arizona last year, so that's somebody you want to keep an eye on. Now, Derek Carr, his receivers are banged up, so that gives me some pause. This might be more of a Josh Jacobs type week, but he still has Darren Waller to throw to. He still has Ruggs, the rookie wide receiver. He has another rookie to throw to in Edwards. He could put up some points. Next game, Miami versus New England. Ryan Fitzpatrick, for me, he's so streaky. He's a sit. Daily fantasy, I don't mind you taking a chance on him, but on your regular fantasy football lineups, no. Cam Newton, for me, also is I don't know. There are more questions than answers at this point. I recognize a lot of people are pretty high on him. For me, I'm a wait and see, but daily fantasy, I would put him in, have no problem with it. I'm not putting him in my regular league lineups this week. I'd look for somebody else. However, he has the ability to score a lot. I'm really interested to see what New England does with Newton at quarterback. Next game, New York Jets versus Buffalo Bills. I actually think the Jets defense is a little bit better than they get credit for. Obviously, we know the Buffalo Bills defense and what they can do. I'm a sit on Darnold this week. I think he's a better, again, the Jets. I think they're just an underrated team, honestly. Darnold was 7-6 last year as a starter, but a lot of questions at wide receiver. Yes, he has Jamison Crowder. Yes, he has Herndon. Yes, he has Le'Veon Bell to throw to. But Buffalo's defense, again, I don't think this is the week you take that risk. Even in daily fantasy, I'm out. Josh Allen, he will get you rushing yards at a minimum. He's a start for me. I think he's probably a top 10 quarterback. So if he's your quarterback, if you waited in your draft to draft that quarterback, you ended up with Josh Allen, I think you'll be fine this week, thanks to some of those rushing yards. Next game, Philadelphia versus Washington. Carson Wentz. Yeah, I'm going to start him. I don't love the projection on him. He's kind of a mid-grade guy, but I think he's going to outplay that projection this week. Now, Washington's defense is going to be much improved, but it's a new system. It takes time for these things to meld. We'll see what happens. I do like that Wentz still has Goddard and Ertz to throw to. And yes, Deshaun Watson, this might be the only game he's healthy for the entire year. I'm sorry, not Deshaun Jackson. It's a revenge game. It's a week one, so he's at, seriously, the healthiest he's going to be all year. So they have that over-the-top component. Both backs, Miles Sanders and Boston Scott, can catch. I think Carson Wentz will outplay his projection, so I'm comfortable starting him, even though my analytics tell me no. Dwayne Haskins, I'm going to wait and see. All news indicates that Haskins has been pretty solid and is grasping the system. A lot of questions for Washington, so I'm going to hold off. Next game, Seattle versus Atlanta. This is a game, I think, over the NFL, there's going to be a lot of rust, especially in the passing game. This is a game I feel good about. Matt Ryan and Russell Wilson will put up points. They'll put up touchdowns. I'm a firm start on both. I think both quarterbacks get into the top 10 this week. Next game, the LA Chargers versus the Cincinnati Bengals. I think this is going to be more of a defensive matchup. Tyrod Taylor, yeah, he'll get you some rushing yards. So daily fantasy, maybe I take a flyer on. Superflex is more of a desperate play for me. I kind of hold off a little bit. I know Cincinnati's defense was bad last year. There were reasons for that. They're going to be better this year. Now, the Chargers' defense is strong, and Joe Burrow, this is his first game action as a pro. We didn't have a preseason. I'm selling on him. Now, I'm a buyer long term. I'm a buyer this season. I'm selling on him this week. I think the first quarter of the season is going to be tough on him. It'll take some time to acclimate. I don't see the Bengals scoring a lot of points, so I'm punting on Joe Burrow for another week. Arizona versus San Francisco. I'm a buyer on both quarterbacks. I think Garoppolo has a nice game. I think he's top 10 this week. Kyler Murray certainly is a top 10 this week. Now, Arizona played San Francisco very tough last year. They have DeAndre Hopkins, who they got in the offseason, which I love that addition to this offense. How could you not? San Francisco, I think the Garoppolo to Kittle matchup is going to be alive and well. The one game, I believe Kittle was injured the second time they played, but that one game that they played, Kittle blew up. My question there, though, is Simmons, who was drafted. He was my favorite defensive player in the draft. He gets drafted. Is he going to be matched up? Or they're going to try to shut down Kittle with the rookie there? I don't know. First game of the season, though. First real NFL action, regardless of that matchup. I like Garoppolo throwing this week. Samuel, we'll see if he plays. I don't know. Who knows, right? All these questionable guys. But, regardless, he'll have Bourne. He'll have guys out of the backfield, and he'll have Kittle. So I like Garoppolo this week. And he's a nice waiver grab if you're thin at quarterback. Tampa Bay versus New Orleans. Both quarterbacks are starts. My only question with Tom Brady is, in this downfield passing approach, can he stay upright? Can the Tampa Bay offensive line, are they good enough to protect him? And can he take more hits this year than he's taken in recent years in New England? That's my only question. But, if this were a video game that you could turn injuries off, both players are starts. This is another, actually I have these both as top 5 projections. So I think they're fantastic quarterbacks this week. That's the second game now that I'm looking back. So Houston, Kansas City, I have Patrick Mahomes 1, I have Deshaun Watson 3. Tampa Bay, New Orleans, I have Drew Brees 2, Tom Brady 4. So 2 games give you the top 4 quarterbacks there. How about that? 3 games left. We have Dallas versus the LA Rams. I want to wait and see on Dak Prescott. I know draft capital. If you got him, you're going to start him. That's fine. No argument there. Daily fantasy, I'm selling on Dak Prescott. I want to wait and see what I have in that new scheme. Is it going to be more McCarthy concepts? Is it going to be Kellen Moore kind of integrating this offense and doing a lot of what they did last year? Let me get an answer first, okay? The LA Rams, Jared Goff, although I'm a buyer on him this season, I am not a buyer on him in this particular matchup. Again, wait and see. Let's see if the Rams can get the run game going. If they can, then Goff is going to be put into more positions to succeed downfield, better one-on-one matchups with his talented receiving group. We're into Monday night now. The Pittsburgh Steelers versus the New York Giants. Ben Roethlisberger, his projection isn't great. I think he'll outplay the projection. I think Juju Smith-Schuster, Deontay Johnson, James Conner, all those players that kind of struggled last year with bad quarterback play, fueling that. They're going to have new life breathed into them this season. I think Pittsburgh's offense is going to be good. I think they're going to score. With all respect to the Giants, I like what they're doing as an organization. It's the first game of the season. I'm going with continuity. I'm going with what I've seen in the past. Ben Roethlisberger to start. And, man, that Pittsburgh defense, as good as they were last year, and they were 8-6 without Roethlisberger, fueled by that defense. That was a defense playing behind an offense that could not get a third down. This offense will be better. They'll convert more third downs. That means this amazing defense is going to be well rested. I don't like that for Daniel Jones executing a new offense, only a second-year player. I like Daniel Jones. No disrespect to him. Not this week. And then lastly, we have Ryan Tannehill versus, Tennessee Titans and Ryan Tannehill, Drew Lock, and the Denver Broncos. I'm selling on both. I think this will be a defensive matchup. I'm a big buyer on Tannehill to be a sleeper this year. I don't think the back half of last season was a fluke. I don't think also that they're going to get a 90% touchdown percentage this year inside the red zone. But I like Tannehill, just not this week. I'm a seller on him. I have him rostered, so I like him, just not this week. So if you're looking for waiver wire plays, and goodness, I hope you're not, I'll give you some. And if you're looking for daily fantasy type sleepers, these budget guys that could take you and push you over the top and get you paid, I'm going to let you know right now. So I mentioned Mitch Trubisky. That's if you play like 30 daily fantasy lineups or more a week, throw Mitch Trubisky into one or two of them, okay? Take your flyer on him, then you can spend your money elsewhere. I'm not a big buyer on it, but my projection likes it, and it says Trubisky's going to be able to rush for some yards, so take that for what it is. Bridgewater, I'm a big buyer on. He's going to be cheap for you in daily fantasy. He's available for you on the waiver wire. Look, it's before week 1. The last thing you want to do if you're QB hungry is wait and see what happens in week 1 and then have to fight over that player in waivers. If you have a second defense, if you have a second kicker, something like that, waive that person and take your chances on these waiver wires before week 1. My before week 1 waiver wire quarterback is Teddy Bridgewater. If he can be as good this year in this college spread type system with these talented receivers and Christian McCaffrey out of the backfield, if he can be as good this year as Kyler Murray was last year, and that's not that outside the realm of possibility, you need to pick him up now because you might not have another chance, and he's free for you sitting on the waiver wire. In fact, I've talked myself into it. Right after I'm done recording and posting this video, I'm going to pick him up in my league. Jimmy Garoppolo, I think, the San Francisco team, sometimes they're just going to run the ball, 40 times and just eat teams up, and Garoppolo might only throw the ball like 10 or 11 times. So is he your year-long starter? No. I like the projection this week and in daily fantasy. I think he's worth the play. And Gardner Minshew is a guy that I like throughout the season. Remember, Jay Gruden is there running the offense now. Jay Gruden has always had good fantasy quarterbacks until last season when they were going through some positional flux. He's the offensive play caller behind Andy Dalton. When Andy Dalton was a top 10 fantasy quarterback, he was the play caller behind Kirk Cousins when Kirk Cousins was a fantasy football top 10 quarterback. Gardner Minshew plays with chip on his shoulder. He has a great connection downfield. He'll take chances. He'll throw the ball up to DJ Chark. He's going to get you points, and he's better on the ground than you think he is. He will get you rushing yards and rushing touchdowns as well. If you're thin at quarterback, especially if you're in a Superflex league, and Gardner Minshew is available, you're not going to have another crack at him if you're in Superflex. Regular fantasy football, you might have a chance next week as well, but I think Minshew is going to play better than people think. So there are my before week 1 value guys at the quarterback position. Go ahead and pick them up if you have the roster room. Like I said, it makes no sense to keep a second defense and a second kicker. Drop one of those guys. Take some chances. Take some chances on running backs, wide receivers before week 1 so that you don't have to fight over these guys. That week 1 waiver position is so important. You don't want to fight over a guy you could have had for free. Fight over people that are popping. There's going to be a surprise running back or two. There's going to be a couple injuries. There's going to be a surprise wide receiver that gets like 15 targets. You need to be ready for that in week 1. If you can just fight over those potential guys and get the guys for free, like a Minshew, like a Garoppolo, like a Bridgewater now, you'll be better served throughout the season. Remember, roster building, fantasy football is a year-round. It's not only nailing the draft. You got to be strong in waivers and trades. So there you go. There's quarterback, and we'll catch you on the other positions as well. We're going to do running back. We're going to do tight end. We're going to do wide receiver. I think we'll hold off on defense and kicker this particular week. But next week, we'll start doing the defense. Thanks, everyone.